Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell for new stories. The forest was alive with the sound of his pounding heart. Alex ran, his boots crunching against the forest floor, his breaths coming in short, ragged bursts. Zephyra moved beside him, her steps unnervingly quiet despite her alien appearance. The faint hum that had preceded the drone's attack now echoed ominously in the distance. Alex skidded to a stop near a cluster of boulders. "This way," he whispered, motioning for Zephyra to follow him into the shadows of the rocks. They crouched together, concealed by the natural cover. "Explain," he hissed, his voice low but firm. "What are those things, and why are they after you?" Zephyra tilted her head, the crystalline texture of her eyes catching the fading sunlight as she regarded him. Her wrist device emitted a soft series of tones, translating her alien language. "They are sentinels. Machines designed to guard this region. They detect anything unfamiliar, anything alien." "Machines?" Alex asked, glancing back toward the path. "Like Earth's AI drones, or something worse?" Zephyra hesitated. "They are ancient, far more advanced than what your world creates. They are not of this earth either." Alex's stomach churned. "And what do they want with you?" "I am not their target. The shard is." She looked at him earnestly. "I am here for it. It is critical for my survival, and yours." Alex narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean, ours? What does this shard have to do with Earth?" Before she could answer, a sharp whirring filled the air again. Alex's head snapped toward the sound. Two more drones burst through the trees, their sleek metallic forms weaving through the underbrush with lethal precision. Without thinking, Alex grabbed Zephyra's arm and pulled her to her feet. "Run," he said, his voice firm, brooking no argument. They sprinted through the forest, dodging low-hanging branches and leaping over roots. The drones closed the distance quickly, their mechanical limbs propelling them with terrifying speed. One of them fired a small, glowing projectile that sizzled through the air and struck a tree, sending shards of bark flying in all directions. "Do you have any weapons?" Alex shouted as they ran. Zephyra didn't answer immediately, her focus fixed on the path ahead. Finally, she raised her wrist device. A faint hum emanated from it, and a beam of bluish light shot toward the nearest drone. The machine faltered, its movements jerking erratically, but it quickly recovered and resumed its pursuit. "That's a no, then," Alex muttered under his breath. Ahead, the trail split into two directions. Alex yanked Zephyra toward the left, hoping to lose the drones in the denser undergrowth. They slid down a steep embankment, landing in a shallow creek. The cold water soaked Alex's boots, but he didn't stop. He pushed forward, Zephyra close behind him. The hum of the drones grew louder, then stopped abruptly. Alex slowed, his chest heaving as he scanned the area. "Why did they stop?" he whispered. Zephyra crouched beside him, her crystalline eyes narrowing. "They are recalibrating. They adapt to their environment." "Great," Alex muttered, wiping a bead of sweat from his forehead. "We're dealing with self-learning death machines. What else is new?" Before she could reply, a new sound reached their ears, a low rumble, like the growl of a distant predator. The ground beneath them trembled slightly. Alex's eyes darted around, searching for the source. Zephyra's wrist device emitted a series of sharp beeps. "It's a guardian," she said, her voice calm but grim. "We must keep moving." "A guardian? What's that?" She hesitated, then said, "Larger. Stronger. Intelligent." "Of course it is," Alex said, shaking his head. "All right, let's move." They climbed out of the creek and into a narrow ravine. The walls rose steeply on either side, creating a natural corridor. Alex's instincts screamed that this was a trap, but there was no other way forward. The rumbling sound grew louder, accompanied by the faint glow of red light reflecting off the ravine walls. Zephyra, Alex said, his voice low, we're walking straight into something bad. She nodded. I know. Great, Alex muttered. Just great. They reached the end of the ravine, where the walls opened into a wide clearing. At the center stood a towering machine, its metallic frame bristling with weapons and sensors. It resembled a massive humanoid, its head swiveling toward them as they entered the clearing. Its eyes, if they could be called that, glowed an ominous red. Zephyra stopped, her posture tense. Stay back, she said, raising her wrist device. The Guardian let out a deafening roar, a sound that seemed to vibrate through Alex's very bones. It charged toward them, its massive legs shaking the ground with each step. Zephyra fired her wrist beam, but the Guardian raised a shield-like appendage, deflecting the attack effortlessly. That's not going to work. Alex shouted, pulling her toward a cluster of boulders for cover. The Guardian reached the clearing's edge, its red eyes scanning the area. It raised one massive arm, and a glowing orb began to form at the end of its cannon-like appendage. Do you have a plan? Alex asked, his voice edged with panic. Zephyra hesitated, then said, its core is exposed. We must hit it directly. Great, Alex said, peeking out from behind the boulder. And how do you propose we do that? She looked at him, her expression unreadable. You must distract it. Alex blinked. Me? Distract that thing? Are you insane? It will not focus on both of us, she said simply. If you can draw its attention, I can get close enough to strike. Alex stared at her, then let out a bitter laugh. Yeah, sure. Why not? It's not like I wanted to live or anything. Before he could second-guess himself, Alex grabbed a large rock and hurled it at the Guardian. The rock struck its metallic frame with a loud clang. The machine's head swiveled toward him, its glowing eyes narrowing. Hey! Alex shouted, waving his arms. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Come and get me, you oversized tin can. The Guardian let out another deafening roar and charged toward him. Alex bolted, weaving between the boulders as the machine's massive footsteps shook the ground behind him. He glanced over his shoulder and saw Zephyra darting toward the Guardian's exposed back, her movements swift and precise. Any time now, Zephyra. Alex shouted, narrowly dodging a blast from the Guardian's cannon. Zephyra reached the Guardian and raised her wrist device. A beam of concentrated light shot from it, striking the machine's exposed core. The Guardian let out a high-pitched screech, its movements jerking erratically as sparks erupted from its frame. Alex dove behind a tree as the machine collapsed, its massive frame crashing to the ground with a deafening boom. He peeked out cautiously, his heart still racing. Zephyra approached him, her expression calm but resolute. It is done, she said simply. Alex let out a shaky laugh. Yeah. Sure. Easy. As the forest fell silent once more, Alex looked at Zephyra, his curiosity outweighing his fear. All right, he said. You've got some explaining to do. Zephyra nodded, her crystalline eyes meeting his. And I will. But first, we must keep moving. The shard is close. The forest was eerily quiet after the collapse of the Guardian. Alex leaned against a tree, his chest heaving as he tried to catch his breath. The colossal machine lay in a crumpled heap, its glowing red eyes now dim and lifeless. Zephyra stood beside it, inspecting the wreckage with an expression of grim satisfaction. So, Alex said between breaths, are we done fighting killer robots, or is that just the appetizer? Zephyra glanced at him, her crystalline eyes catching the faint light filtering through the canopy. The shard is near, she said, her voice calm yet urgent. But there will be more sentinels. We must move quickly. Alex let out a dry laugh. Of course. Why would it be easy? Despite his sarcastic tone, he pushed himself to his feet and followed Zephyra as she led the way deeper into the forest. The terrain grew rougher, the trees thicker and the air heavier with the scent of moss and damp earth. As they walked, Alex's mind raced with questions. He finally decided to voice one of them. "You said the shard is critical for survival, yours and mine. What did you mean by that?" Zephyra hesitated, her steps faltering for a moment. Then she said, "The shard is a core fragment. It contains energy that can power my ship and allow me to return to my mission." "And this mission of yours," Alex pressed, "why does it involve Earth? And why do these machines care so much about this shard?" She paused, turning to face him. Her glowing skin seemed dimmer now, as if the effort of their journey was taking a toll on her. "The machines are not native to your world. They were left here long ago, by those who feared what my people sought." "Feared?" Alex repeated, his brow furrowing. "What are they afraid of?" Zephyra's gaze dropped to the forest floor. "The core shard contains more than energy. It holds knowledge, ancient data from a time when our worlds were connected. That knowledge could change the balance of power in the galaxy. Some would use it to save. Others, to destroy." Alex stared at her, his mind reeling. "And which side are you on?" She met his gaze, her crystalline eyes unwavering. "I am here to protect my people. But I see now that your world is also at risk. The machines do not discriminate. They will destroy anyone who stands in their way." Alex wanted to ask more, to demand answers, but the urgency in her voice made it clear they didn't have time for a lengthy discussion. He nodded and gestured for her to continue leading the way. They came upon a clearing, the air around it heavy with an unnatural stillness. At the center stood a massive stone obelisk, its surface etched with intricate glyphs that glowed faintly in the dim light. Surrounding the obelisk were fragments of machinery, ancient and corroded, yet still humming with a faint energy. Zephyra approached the obelisk cautiously, her wrist device emitting a soft series of tones. "The shard is here," she said, her voice almost reverent. "Inside this structure." Alex followed her, his eyes scanning the area. The obelisk looked ancient, older than anything he'd ever seen, and the glowing glyphs gave it an otherworldly aura. "How do we get it out?" he asked. Zephyra didn't answer immediately. She studied the glyphs, her fingers tracing the symbols as if they were familiar to her. Finally, she said, "There is a mechanism. A sequence that must be activated." "Let me guess," Alex said, crossing his arms. "This mechanism is going to trigger every machine within a 5-mile radius, isn't it?" Zephyra gave him a faint smile. "Likely." "Great. Just great," Alex muttered. "All right, let's do it." Zephyra began pressing certain glyphs in a precise sequence. As she did, the faint glow of the symbols grew brighter, illuminating the clearing with an ethereal light. The air seemed to hum with energy, and Alex felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. A deep rumble echoed from within the obelisk, and a section of its surface slid open, revealing a crystalline shard suspended in midair. The shard pulsed with a brilliant light, its energy so intense that Alex had to shield his eyes. "There it is," Zephyra said, her voice filled with a mix of awe and relief. She reached for the shard, but before her fingers could touch it, the ground beneath them began to shake violently. Alex staggered, grabbing onto a nearby tree for support. "What now?" he shouted over the noise. Zephyra didn't respond. Her attention was fixed on the forest around them, where the faint hum of approaching machines was growing louder by the second. The sentinels were coming. "We don't have much time," she said, grabbing the shard. The moment she touched it, the glyphs on the obelisk flared brightly, and a shockwave of energy rippled outward, knocking Alex off his feet. When he scrambled to his knees, he saw Zephyra clutching the shard tightly, her glowing skin now pulsing in sync with the crystal. She looked at him, her expression urgent. "We must leave. Now." The forest erupted with movement as the sentinels arrived. Dozens of them emerged from the trees, their sleek forms glinting in the light of the shard. Alex's stomach dropped at the sight of so many, each one more menacing than the last. "Any bright ideas?" he asked, his voice tinged with panic. Zephyra activated her wrist device, and a holographic map appeared in the air. "There is a cave system nearby," she said. "It will provide cover." "Lead the way," Alex said, pulling a hunting knife from his belt. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. They ran, the sentinels hot on their heels. Alex threw whatever he could find, rocks, branches, anything to slow the machines down, but it was a futile effort. The sentinels were relentless, their mechanical limbs propelling them forward with terrifying speed. Zephyra fired her wrist beam, taking down 2 of the machines, but more kept coming. One of them leaped toward Alex, its metallic claws outstretched. He ducked at the last second, plunging his knife into its side. Sparks flew as the machine crashed to the ground, twitching and sputtering. "Keep moving," Zephyra shouted. They reached the entrance to the cave system, a narrow crevice in the side of a rocky hill. Zephyra squeezed through first, and Alex followed, the sound of the sentinels' pursuit echoing behind them. The cave was dark and cold, the air damp with the smell of earth and stone. Zephyra activated a small device that emitted a soft blue light, illuminating their path. They ventured deeper into the cave, the walls closing in around them. Finally, they reached a small chamber. Zephyra placed the shard on a flat rock, its light casting eerie shadows on the cave walls. "We should be safe here, for now," she said, her voice calm despite the tension in the air. Alex sank to the ground, his back against the wall. "Safe," he repeated, laughing bitterly. "You've got a funny definition of the word." Zephyra looked at him, her expression softening. "You have been brave, Alex. Your ingenuity has saved us more than once." "I am grateful." Alex shrugged. "Yeah, well, let's hope it's enough to get us out of this mess." He stared at the shard, its brilliant light reflecting in Zephyra's crystalline eyes. Whatever this thing was, it was more than just a power source. It was a key to something far bigger than either of them. And Alex had a feeling their adventure was just beginning. The cave was quiet except for the soft hum of the shard resting on the rock. Alex sat cross-legged against the wall, watching Zephyra as she worked. She seemed almost weightless in her movements, her glowing fingers dancing over the shard as if attuning herself to its power. The dim light from the shard bathed the chamber in an ethereal glow, making everything feel surreal. "You think we're really safe here?" Alex asked, breaking the silence. His voice echoed faintly in the narrow space. "For now," Zephyra replied, not looking up. "The sentinels will not enter the cave immediately. They are cautious of enclosed spaces. But it will not last. They will adapt." Alex sighed, running a hand through his damp hair. "Great. So we're sitting ducks. What's the plan?" Zephyra finally turned to face him. Her crystalline eyes held a mix of determination and weariness. "The shard must be calibrated to my ship's systems before we can leave. It requires synchronization with the navigational matrix." Alex raised an eyebrow. "And that means?" "It will take time," she said simply. Alex groaned, leaning his head back against the wall. "Of course it will." Zephyra knelt beside the shard, her glowing hands hovering over its surface. The light intensified slightly, and the hum grew louder, filling the chamber with an almost hypnotic resonance. Alex watched her work, fascinated despite the danger they were in. "You're really something, you know that," he said, his tone a mix of awe and frustration. "A couple of hours ago, I was just a guy hiking in the woods. Now I'm fighting killer robots and hiding in caves with an alien who's trying to save the galaxy." Zephyra tilted her head, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "You are adapting well, for a human." Alex chuckled dryly. "Yeah, well, survival tends to bring out the best in people. Or the worst." Before Zephyra could respond, a faint noise echoed from the cave's entrance, a low, mechanical hum that sent a chill down Alex's spine. He shot to his feet, gripping his hunting knife tightly. "They're here," he said, his voice low. Zephyr's expression hardened. "They are probing the area. They will attempt to flush us out." "Flush us out?" Alex repeated. "How?" As if in answer, a deafening blast echoed through the cave, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Dust and debris rained down from the ceiling, and the faint hum of the shard grew erratic, pulsing in time with the tremors. "They're trying to collapse the entrance," Zephyr said, her voice calm despite the urgency of the situation. "We must move deeper into the cave." Alex didn't need to be told twice. He grabbed his backpack and slung it over his shoulder, then helped Zephyr lift the shard. The crystalline object was surprisingly light, its glow dimming slightly as they began to move. The cave narrowed as they ventured deeper, the air growing colder and more oppressive. The hum of the sentinels followed them, a constant reminder of the danger lurking just behind. Alex's mind raced as he tried to come up with a plan. "Any chance we can fight them off?" he asked, glancing at Zephyr. She shook her head. "Not without significant risk. Our priority is to protect the shard." "Right," Alex muttered. "Because running for our lives is so much better." They reached a fork in the tunnel, the two paths diverging sharply. Zephyr hesitated, her glowing fingers brushing against the wall as if searching for guidance. "Which way?" Alex asked. Zephyr closed her eyes for a moment, then pointed to the left. "This way leads to an exit," she said. "But it will not be unguarded." "Of course it won't," Alex said with a sigh. "Let's go." They moved quickly, the sound of the sentinels growing louder behind them. The tunnel sloped downward, leading into a wide chamber filled with strange, glowing crystals that jutted out from the walls and ceiling. The crystals pulsed with a soft, rhythmic light, casting the chamber in an otherworldly glow. Zephyr paused, her eyes widening. This is unexpected," she said, her voice filled with awe. "What is it?" Alex asked, scanning the chamber warily. "This crystal field is a natural amplifier," Zephyr explained. "It can enhance the shard's energy output. With this, I can boost the signal to disable the sentinels temporarily." "Boost the signal?" Alex repeated. "Like an EMP?" "Similar," Zephyr said, kneeling beside one of the larger crystals. "But it will require precise calibration. And it will take time." Alex groaned. "Time we don't have." The sound of metallic footsteps echoed from the tunnel behind them, growing louder with each passing second. Alex clenched his knife tightly, his mind racing. He glanced at Zephyr, who was already working to position the shard near the largest crystal. "How long do you need?" he asked. 5 minutes, she said without looking up. 5 minutes, Alex muttered. Might as well be 5 hours. He turned toward the tunnel, his heart pounding. The first sentinel appeared moments later, its sleek metallic body glinting in the crystal light. It spotted Alex immediately, its red eyes glowing menacingly. "All right, big guy," Alex said, raising his knife. "Let's dance." The sentinel charged, its mechanical limbs moving with terrifying speed. Alex dodged to the side, narrowly avoiding a swipe from its razor-sharp claws. He slashed at its side with his knife, sparks flying as the blade struck metal. The sentinel staggered but quickly recovered, its movements fluid and precise. It lunged at Alex again, forcing him to roll out of the way. He scrambled to his feet, breathing heavily as he prepared for the next attack. Behind him, Zephyr worked furiously, her glowing hands moving in a blur as she calibrated the shard. The crystals around her pulsed with increasing intensity, their light growing brighter with each passing moment. "Almost there," she said, her voice calm despite the chaos. "Take your time," Alex said sarcastically, ducking another attack from the sentinel. "It's not like I'm fighting for my life or anything." 2 more sentinels entered the chamber, their red eyes locking onto Alex. He cursed under his breath, realizing he was outnumbered. He grabbed a loose crystal from the ground and hurled it at one of the machines, the makeshift projectile shattering against its metallic frame. "Zephyra, any time now," he shouted. "Almost," she repeated, her voice steady. The sentinels closed in, their movements coordinated and relentless. Alex's muscles burned with exhaustion as he dodged and parried, his knife barely holding up against their relentless assault. Finally, the shard emitted a high-pitched whine, its light merging with the glow of the crystals. Zephyra stood, her expression triumphant. "Now," she said, pressing her wrist device. A wave of energy burst from the shard, rippling through the chamber like a shockwave. The sentinels froze mid-attack, their limbs locking up as the energy disrupted their systems. One by one, they collapsed to the ground, their red eyes dimming. Alex sank to his knees, his chest heaving. You did it," he said, looking up at Zephyra. She nodded, her crystalline eyes glowing softly. "The sentinels are disabled. But it will not last. We must leave." Alex pushed himself to his feet, wiping sweat from his brow. "Lead the way." Zephyra picked up the shard, its light now steady and calm. Together, they moved toward the far end of the chamber, where a faint breeze signaled the presence of an exit. As they emerged into the cool night air, Alex took a deep breath, his mind still racing from the encounter. He glanced at Zephyra, who held the shard tightly, her expression unreadable. "What now?" he asked. Zephyra looked up at the stars, her gaze distant. "Now, we prepare for the final challenge." The cool night air wrapped around them as Alex and Zephyra emerged from the cave. The forest stretched out before them, silent and dark, the canopy of stars above offering the only light. Alex paused, bending over to catch his breath. His muscles burned from the relentless pace, his knife still gripped tightly in his hand. Zephyra stood a few steps ahead, the shard glowing faintly in her grasp. She seemed unbothered by the physical strain, her movements fluid and purposeful. Yet Alex noticed a faint flicker in her crystalline skin, as if the strain of their journey was finally catching up to her. "You okay?" he asked, straightening up. She nodded but didn't meet his eyes. "We cannot stop for long. The sentinels will recover soon." "Of course they will," Alex muttered, tucking his knife back into its sheath. "Do they ever just quit?" Zephyra finally turned to face him, her expression softening. "Their purpose is singular. They are bound to it, just as I am bound to mine." Alex frowned, leaning against a tree. "Yeah, about that. You keep talking about this mission of yours like it's the most important thing in the universe. Maybe it is, but I'm still in the dark here. What's so special about this shard?" Zephyra hesitated, the shard pulsing softly in her hands. For a moment, Alex thought she might brush off his question again. But then she sighed, the glow in her eyes dimming slightly. "The core shard is part of a network," she began. "An ancient technology left behind by a species older than mine. Its purpose is multipurpose. Energy. Knowledge. But most importantly, it serves as a key to unlocking systems that could alter the balance of power in the galaxy." Alex narrowed his eyes. "You're saying this thing is some kind of ultimate weapon?" "No," Zephyra said quickly. "It is not a weapon. It is a tool. In the right hands, it can rebuild civilizations. In the wrong hands, it could destroy them." Alex crossed his arms. "And you're sure your hands are the right ones?" Zephyra met his gaze, her crystalline eyes steady. "I am sure of my intentions. But I cannot deny the danger this shard represents. That is why the sentinels exist, to keep it hidden." "So why not leave it hidden?" Alex asked. "Why risk everything to take it?" "Because," she said, her voice tinged with emotion, "my people are dying. Our world is dying. This shard is our last chance to survive. Alex fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. He glanced at the shard, its light casting faint shadows on the forest floor. For all the danger it had brought into his life, he couldn't deny its significance. Zephyr's desperation was real, and he could see it etched in every line of her otherworldly face. "All right," he said finally. "I'm in. Let's finish this." Zephyr's expression softened, and she gave him a faint smile. "Thank you, Alex. Your bravery is unexpected, but appreciated." Alex chuckled. "Yeah, well, don't get used to it. I'm more of a stay alive kind of guy." As they moved deeper into the forest, the terrain became more challenging. The trees grew thicker, their twisted roots snaking across the ground like traps waiting to trip them. The air grew colder, the faint hum of the shard the only sound breaking the silence. Alex walked in silence for a while, his thoughts racing. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was in over his head. He was just a guy with a knife and a knack for survival, and yet here he was, caught up in an intergalactic struggle over a piece of ancient technology. "You've been quiet," Zephyr said, breaking the silence. "What troubles you?" Alex shrugged. "Oh, you know, the usual. Killer robots, ancient alien tech, the fate of the galaxy. Nothing major." Zephyr tilted her head, her expression curious. "You joke, but I sense your unease." Alex sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's just, this isn't exactly what I signed up for. I was just out for a hike, and now I'm part of some galactic tug-of-war. It's a lot to take in." Zephyr nodded. "I understand. Your world is small compared to the vastness of the galaxy. But you have shown remarkable resilience. That is no small thing." Alex smirked. "Thanks, I guess. I'm still not sure what you see in me, though." "You underestimate yourself," Zephyr said simply. "Your resourcefulness, your courage, these are traits my people value highly." Alex shook his head, a wry smile on his face. "Well, let's hope your people are right." They reached a ridge overlooking a vast expanse of forest. The moonlight bathed the landscape in a silvery glow, and Alex could see the faint outline of a structure in the distance, a tall, spire-like tower that seemed to pulse faintly with light. "There," Zephyr said, pointing to the tower. "That is my ship." Alex squinted at the distant structure. "That's your ship? Looks more like a skyscraper." "It is both," Zephyr said. "A vessel and a refuge. It has been dormant for many years, waiting for the shard to reactivate it." "Let me guess," Alex said. "Getting there isn't going to be easy." Zephyr's expression grew serious. "The Sentinels will know where we are headed. They will converge on the tower." Alex nodded, his hand instinctively going to the knife at his belt. "All right, then. Let's make this quick." The journey to the tower was grueling. The forest seemed to come alive with movement, the shadows shifting and flickering as the sentinels began to close in. Alex and Zephyr moved as quickly as they could, but the tension was palpable, every snap of a twig sending Alex's heart racing. They reached the base of the tower just as the first sentinel emerged from the trees. It was larger than the others, its limbs gleaming with reinforced plating. Alex cursed under his breath, pulling his knife as Zephyr stepped forward, the shard glowing brightly in her hands. "Can you hold them off?" she asked, her voice steady. Alex swallowed hard. "I'll try. Just don't take too long, okay?" Zephyr nodded, then turned and began ascending a narrow staircase that spiraled around the tower. Alex squared his shoulders, gripping his knife tightly as the sentinel advanced. The fight was brutal. Alex dodged and weaved, using every ounce of his strength and reflexes to stay ahead of the machine's relentless attacks. He managed to land a few blows, but the sentinel's reinforced armor made it nearly impossible to damage. "Zephyr," he shouted, his voice echoing up the tower. "How's it coming?" "Almost there," she called back, her voice strained. The sentinel lunged at Alex, its claws slashing through the air. He barely managed to roll out of the way, his knife skittering across the ground. He scrambled to his feet, his breath coming in short, ragged gasps. "Any time now," he shouted. Finally, the shard's light flared brightly, illuminating the entire forest. The sentinel froze mid-attack, its limbs locking up as the energy from the shard disrupted its systems. Alex staggered back, his chest heaving as the machine collapsed to the ground. Zephyra descended the staircase, the shard still glowing in her hands. "The tower is active," she said, her voice calm but urgent. "We must go." Alex nodded, too exhausted to argue. Together, they entered the tower, the massive doors sliding shut behind them with a low hiss. The hum of the shard filled the air, and Alex felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. "We're not out of the woods yet, are we?" he asked. Zephyra shook her head. "No. But we are one step closer." The inside of the tower was nothing like Alex had imagined. He'd expected sterile metal walls and alien machinery, but the interior felt almost organic. The walls shimmered with a faint, pearlescent glow, and intricate patterns of light danced across their surface like living veins. The hum of the shard resonated in the air, merging with the rhythmic pulse of the tower itself. Zephyra led the way, her movements quick but purposeful. Alex followed close behind, his muscles still aching from the fight with the sentinel. He clutched his knife tightly, his eyes scanning every corner for signs of danger. "Is this place alive?" he asked, his voice echoing softly in the cavernous space. "In a way," Zephyr replied without looking back. "The tower is part of a biomechanical network. It adapts to its surroundings, drawing energy from the shard to function." Alex glanced at the glowing walls, a sense of unease prickling at the back of his neck. "So, it's not just a ship. It's something more." "Yes," Zephyr said. "It was designed to be self-sustaining, a sanctuary for my people in times of crisis. But it has been dormant for centuries, waiting for the shard to awaken it." They reached a central chamber where a spiraling staircase descended into the depths of the tower. The hum grew louder here, vibrating through the air like the low thrum of a heartbeat. Zephyra hesitated at the top of the stairs, her crystalline eyes narrowing as she scanned the chamber. "What's wrong?" Alex asked, his voice low. "The sentinels will not stop," she said. "They will find a way inside. We must move quickly." "Great," Alex muttered. "Just once, I'd like to catch a break." Zephyra began descending the stairs, and Alex followed, the glow from the shard lighting their path. The staircase seemed endless, spiraling deeper and deeper into the tower. Alex's unease grew with every step, the oppressive weight of the tower's ancient energy pressing down on him. "So, what's at the bottom of this thing?" he asked, trying to break the tension. "The core," Zephyra replied. "It is the heart of the tower. Once the shard is installed, the tower will fully activate." "And then what?" Alex pressed. "We fly off into the stars." Zephyra glanced over her shoulder, her expression unreadable. "Not yet. The core must be stabilized first. If the process fails, the tower could collapse." Alex's stomach tightened. Of course it could. Why wouldn't it? They reached the bottom of the staircase, stepping into a massive chamber that seemed to stretch endlessly in all directions. At the center of the room stood a towering structure of intertwined crystal and metal, its surface pulsating with light. The core. Zephyra approached it cautiously, the shard glowing brighter in her hands. She turned to Alex, her expression serious. "This will take time. I must synchronize the shard with the core." "Time we don't have," Alex said, glancing back toward the staircase. "What do I do if the sentinels show up?" "Keep them occupied," Zephyra said simply. "And trust me." Alex nodded, gripping his knife tightly. "Yeah, trust. Sure. No pressure or anything." Zephyr placed the shard into a slot at the center of the core. The entire chamber seemed to come alive, the walls glowing brighter as a deep, resonant hum filled the air. Streams of light flowed from the shard, spreading through the core like rivers of energy. Alex watched in awe, but his admiration was short-lived. A distant metallic clang echoed through the chamber, followed by the unmistakable hum of the sentinels. "Here we go," he muttered, turning toward the staircase. The first sentinel appeared moments later, its red eyes glowing ominously as it descended the stairs. Alex moved to intercept it, his heart pounding. The sentinel lunged at him, its sharp claws slicing through the air. Alex ducked under the attack and drove his knife into its side, sparks flying as the blade struck metal. The sentinel staggered but didn't go down. It turned on him with alarming speed, its mechanical limbs moving in a blur. Alex dodged another swipe, narrowly avoiding the claws that sliced through the air inches from his face. "Zephyr, how's it coming?" he shouted, his voice echoing in the chamber. "Do not distract me," she called back, her voice strained. "Great," Alex muttered, ducking under another attack. No pressure. Two more sentinels emerged from the staircase, their red eyes locking onto Alex. He cursed under his breath, realizing he was outnumbered. He grabbed a loose piece of metal from the ground and hurled it at one of the machines, buying himself a few precious seconds. "Any bright ideas, Alex?" he muttered to himself, backing away as the sentinels closed in. He spotted a series of glowing conduits running along the walls, their light pulsing in rhythm with the core. An idea struck him, a reckless, desperate idea. "Zephyr," he shouted. "Those conduits, can I overload them?" "It is possible," she replied, her voice tense. "But it would be dangerous." "Yeah, well, so is this," Alex said, sprinting toward the nearest conduit. He grabbed a loose shard of crystal from the ground and jammed it into the conduit, sending a surge of energy through the system. The lights in the chamber flared brightly, and the sentinels froze for a moment, their systems disrupted by the surge. Alex didn't waste any time. He charged at the nearest machine, driving his knife into its core. The sentinel spasmed and collapsed, its limbs going limp. One down. The remaining sentinels recovered quickly, their red eyes glowing brighter as they adapted to the surge. Alex braced himself, his breathing ragged. He could hear the hum of the core growing louder behind him, a sign that Zephyr was making progress. "Come on, you tin cans," he muttered, gripping his knife tightly. "Let's finish this." The fight was brutal. Alex dodged and weaved, using every ounce of his strength and reflexes to stay ahead of the sentinel's relentless attacks. He managed to disable another one by luring it into a collapsing conduit, but the last sentinel was smarter, its movements more precise. It lunged at him, its claws grazing his arm and drawing blood. Alex gritted his teeth, ignoring the pain as he drove his knife into the machine's leg. The sentinel staggered, but it didn't go down. It turned on him, its claws poised for a killing blow. "Alex!" Zephyr's voice rang out, cutting through the chaos. Alex glanced toward the core and saw her standing beside it, the shard fully integrated and glowing with blinding light. She raised her wrist device, and a surge of energy erupted from the core, rippling through the chamber like a shockwave. The sentinel froze mid-attack, its limbs locking up as the energy disrupted its systems. Alex staggered back, his chest heaving as the machine collapsed to the ground. "It is done," Zephyr said, her voice calm but filled with relief. Alex sank to his knees, his body trembling from exhaustion. You did it," he said, looking up at her. Zephyr approached him, her crystalline eyes glowing softly. "We did it," she said, extending a hand to help him up. Alex took her hand, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Yeah, sure. Teamwork." The hum of the core filled the air, steady and calm. The tower had come alive, its ancient energy pulsing with renewed strength. But Alex knew their journey was far from over. "What now?" he asked, his voice tinged with both hope and dread. Zephyr's gaze drifted to the ceiling, where faint lines of light began to trace patterns across the walls. "Now," she said, her voice steady, "we prepare for what comes next." The core chamber was bathed in a soothing glow, the rhythmic hum of energy coursing through the tower as Zephyr completed the synchronization. Alex leaned against a wall, still catching his breath after his fight with the sentinels. The faint sting of his wounds reminded him of how close he had come to being torn apart. Zephyr moved with purpose, her focus shifting to a holographic console that materialized in the air beside the core. Streams of alien symbols scrolled across its surface, their meaning indecipherable to Alex. "Is it done?" he asked, breaking the silence. Zephyr nodded, her crystalline eyes fixed on the display. "The core is stable. The tower is fully operational." "Great," Alex said, pushing himself off the wall. "So we can leave now, right? Get off this death trap and—" "No," Zephyr interrupted, her voice calm but firm. "There is one final step." Alex frowned, crossing his arms. "What do you mean, final step? I thought the shard was the key to this whole thing." "It is," she said, turning to face him. "But the shard also contains data, information critical to my mission. I must access it before we leave." Alex's frown deepened. "Data? What kind of data?" Zephyr hesitated, her glowing fingers hovering over the holographic console. For the first time, Alex noticed a flicker of uncertainty in her expression. "It is knowledge," she said finally. "A record of ancient technologies, strategies, and histories. My people need this information to survive." Alex's stomach twisted. "Wait a second. You're saying this shard isn't just some power source, it's a database. And you didn't think to mention that before?" "It was not relevant," Zephyr said, her tone steady but defensive. "The shard's primary purpose is to reactivate the tower. That is what mattered." Alex shook his head, pacing the chamber. "No, see, that's the kind of thing you tell someone when you drag them into a life-or-death situation. What else aren't you telling me?" Zephyr opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, the tower shuddered violently. A deep, resonant sound echoed through the chamber, like the groan of something ancient awakening. Alex instinctively grabbed the wall for support. "What the hell was that?" he asked, his voice sharp with alarm. Zephyr's expression darkened. "The sentinels have breached the outer defenses. They are attempting to destroy the tower." "Of course they are," Alex muttered. "Because why wouldn't this be more complicated?" As the tower continued to tremble, Alex noticed a change in Zephyr. Her calm, almost detached demeanor shifted to one of intense focus. She began working on the holographic console, her glowing hands moving in a blur as she accessed the shard's data. "How much time do we have?" Alex asked, his voice rising over the hum of the core. "Not long," Zephyr replied. "The sentinels will target the core directly. If they succeed, the entire tower will collapse. Then stop messing with the data and let's get out of here." Alex snapped. Zephyr turned to him, her crystalline eyes narrowing. "I cannot leave without the data. It is the only chance my people have to survive." Alex took a step toward her, his frustration boiling over. "And what about Earth? If those machines take down this tower, who's to say they won't come after us next?" "They will not," Zephyr said firmly. "The sentinels were designed only to protect the shard." "Yeah. Well, they didn't seem to have a problem trying to kill me," Alex shot back. The tension between them hung heavy in the air, but before either could say more, the chamber shook again, this time with greater intensity. A distant explosion echoed through the tower, followed by the faint hum of approaching sentinels. "They're coming," Alex said, gripping his knife. "You've got 2 minutes to do whatever it is you need to do. After that, I'm dragging you out of here." Zephyr didn't respond. Her focus returned to the console, the holographic symbols reflecting in her glowing eyes. Alex turned toward the entrance, his heart pounding as the sound of the sentinels grew louder. The first sentinel appeared moments later, its sleek metallic form glinting in the light of the core. Alex moved to intercept it, his muscles screaming in protest as he prepared for another fight. The sentinel charged, its claws slicing through the air. Alex ducked under the attack and drove his knife into its side, sparks flying as the blade struck metal. The sentinel staggered but quickly recovered, its red eyes glowing brighter as it adapted to his tactics. Alex cursed under his breath, realizing he couldn't keep this up for long. "Zephyra," he shouted over his shoulder. "How's it coming?" "Almost there," she called back, her voice strained. Alex ducked another swipe from the sentinel and glanced toward the console. He saw the shard pulsing with a strange, irregular light, as if it were resisting Zephyra's efforts to access its data. "Whatever you're doing, do it faster," Alex yelled. Suddenly, a new voice filled the chamber, a deep, synthetic tone that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. "Unauthorized access detected." Alex froze, his eyes darting around the room. What the hell was that? Zephyra's expression turned grim. "The shard's failsafe. It is designed to prevent unauthorized entities from accessing its data." "Great," Alex said, dodging another attack from the sentinel. "And let me guess, it's about to make things worse." Before Zephyra could respond, the shard emitted a burst of light, and the holographic console flickered. The symbols shifted, transforming into a series of complex patterns that seemed to ripple across the chamber. Zephyra's hands froze over the console, her expression unreadable. This was not expected. What wasn't expected? Alex demanded, slamming his knife into the sentinel's core and sending it crashing to the ground. "Talk to me." "The shard's failsafe has activated an override protocol," Zephyra said. "It is, scanning." "Scanning what?" Alex asked, his voice rising with panic. "Everything," Zephyra said softly. "The core, the tower, and us." The shard pulsed again, and Alex felt a strange sensation wash over him, like a wave of energy passing through his body. He staggered, his vision blurring for a moment before snapping back into focus. "What the hell was that?" he asked, his voice shaky. "The shard is evaluating us," Zephyra said, her tone calm but urgent. "It is determining whether we are worthy." Alex stared at her, his mind racing. "Worthy? Of what?" Zephyra didn't answer. Instead, she turned back to the console, her hands moving frantically as she tried to regain control of the system. "Zephyra!" Alex shouted. "What's going on?" She paused, her crystalline eyes meeting his. For the first time, Alex saw something in her expression that unsettled him: fear. "The shard is not just a database," she said. "It is an intelligence. And it may decide that neither of us should survive." As the shard's light grew brighter, Alex felt a cold dread settle over him. The sentinels were closing in, the tower was on the verge of collapse, and now the very thing they had fought so hard to protect was threatening to destroy them. "What do we do?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Zephyra's gaze hardened. "We fight. Together." The chamber seemed alive, pulsing with light and energy as the shard's failsafe continued its activation. The hum from the core was deafening now, its resonance so powerful that Alex could feel it vibrating in his chest. Around him, the towers shuddered under the assault of the sentinels, their relentless attacks closing in on the core chamber. Zephyra worked furiously at the holographic console, her glowing hands moving in a blur as she tried to regain control of the shard. Alex stood beside her, his knife clenched tightly in his hand, scanning the room for any sign of the incoming sentinels. "We're running out of time," he said, his voice rising over the chaos. "Whatever you're doing, you need to finish it now." "I am trying," Zephyra snapped, her voice unusually sharp. "The shard is resisting me. Its intelligence does not trust my intentions." Alex blinked, his grip tightening on his knife. You mean this thing is judging you? What does it want? Zephyra hesitated, the light in her crystalline eyes flickering. It seeks proof of my worth. Proof that I can wield the knowledge it holds responsibly. How the hell are you supposed to prove that? Alex asked, his frustration boiling over. We don't have time for an ethics debate. Before Zephyra could respond, the first of the sentinels burst into the chamber. It was larger than the others, its metallic frame reinforced with additional plating. Its red eyes locked onto Alex, and it let out a mechanical roar that sent a chill down his spine. Here we go, Alex muttered, stepping forward to intercept the machine. The sentinel charged, its claws slashing through the air. Alex ducked under the attack and drove his knife into its side, but the reinforced plating barely scratched. The machine spun around, its movements faster and more precise than any sentinel he had faced before. Zephyra, he shouted, dodging another swipe. I could use some help here. I cannot stop, she replied, her focus never leaving the console. The failsafe is still active. Alex cursed under his breath, narrowly avoiding a blow that would have torn him apart. The sentinel lunged at him again, its claws grazing his arm and drawing blood. He stumbled back, his vision blurring from the pain. You've got this, Alex, he muttered to himself, gripping his knife tightly. Just keep it busy. As Alex fought to keep the sentinel at bay, Zephyra's hands moved faster over the console. Streams of alien symbols filled the air around her, and the shard's light grew brighter, illuminating the entire chamber. She could feel the shard's intelligence pushing back against her efforts, its energy probing her mind like a living presence. I mean no harm, she said aloud, her voice calm but resolute. I seek only to save my people. The shard pulsed in response, its light flickering as if considering her words. Zephyra closed her eyes, her glowing fingers still moving over the console. She allowed herself to focus, to project her intentions as clearly as she could. I am not your enemy, she continued. But if you do not help me, countless lives will be lost. Meanwhile, Alex was running out of steam. The sentinel had backed him into a corner, its red eyes glowing menacingly as it prepared for another attack. Alex gritted his teeth, raising his knife in a defensive stance. Any time now, Zephyra, he shouted. The sentinel lunged, its claws slashing toward him. At the last second, Alex rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the attack. He grabbed a loose piece of metal from the ground and hurled it at the machine, buying himself a few precious seconds. But it wasn't enough. The sentinel recovered quickly, turning toward him with mechanical precision. Alex braced himself, knowing he couldn't hold it off much longer. Just as the machine lunged again, a burst of energy erupted from the shard. The sentinel froze mid-attack, its limbs locking up as the energy disrupted its systems. Alex staggered back, his chest heaving as the machine collapsed to the ground. What the hell was that? He asked, glancing toward Zephyra. She stood beside the console, her expression calm but resolute. The shard has accepted me, she said simply. Alex blinked, his mind racing. What? The failsafe has been deactivated, Zephyra explained. The shard now recognizes me as its rightful wielder. Great, Alex said, wiping blood from his arm. Does that mean we can get out of here now? Zephyra nodded, turning back to the console. Yes. But first, we must deal with the remaining sentinels. As if on cue, more sentinels burst into the chamber. Their movements were coordinated, their red eyes glowing with a menacing light. Alex felt his stomach drop as he realized how many there were. This just keeps getting better, he muttered, gripping his knife tightly. Zephyra stepped forward, the shard glowing brightly in her hands. She raised it high, and a wave of energy rippled through the chamber, disrupting the sentinels' movements. Some of them collapsed immediately, their systems overloaded, while others adapted quickly, continuing their advance. I cannot hold them all off, Zephyra said, her voice strained. You must help me. Help you how? Alex asked, dodging an attack from one of the machines. The shard's energy can be focused, she said. But I need time to direct it properly. Alex nodded, his jaw tightening. Time. Got it. He charged at the nearest sentinel, dodging its claws and slashing at its legs with his knife. The machine staggered, its movements jerky as Alex landed another blow. He glanced over his shoulder, watching as Zephyr raised the shard again, its light growing brighter with each passing second. Come on, Alex muttered, ducking under another attack. Just a little longer. The battle raged on, the chamber filled with the sounds of clashing metal and bursts of energy. Alex fought with everything he had, his body pushed to its limits. Each time a sentinel went down, another seemed to take its place, their relentless pursuit a testament to their programming. Finally, Zephyr let out a sharp cry, the shard's light flaring so brightly that Alex had to shield his eyes. A massive wave of energy erupted from the shard, rippling through the chamber and disabling every sentinel in its path. The machines collapsed to the ground, their red eyes dimming as their systems shut down. Alex lowered his arm, blinking against the afterimage of the light. The chamber was silent now, the only sound the faint hum of the core. Is it over? He asked, his voice hoarse. Zephyr nodded, her crystalline eyes glowing softly. It is done. The sentinels have been neutralized. Alex sank to his knees, his body trembling from exhaustion. Good, he said, letting out a shaky laugh. Because I'm pretty sure I'm out of energy too. As the tension in the chamber faded, Zephyr approached Alex, the shard still glowing in her hands. She knelt beside him, her expression softening. You have done well, Alex, she said. Your bravery has saved us both. Alex chuckled weakly. Yeah, well, I had a good coach. Zephyr smiled faintly, then rose to her feet. We must leave now. The shard's energy will not hold forever. Alex nodded, pushing himself to his feet with a groan. Lead the way. Together, they left the chamber, the faint glow of the shard lighting their path. The tower had fallen silent, its ancient energy pulsing gently as if it, too, was resting after the battle. But Alex knew their journey wasn't over yet. The quiet hum of the tower was a stark contrast to the chaos that had unfolded only moments ago. Alex trudged through the winding corridors alongside Zephyr, his body aching from the relentless battle. The faint glow of the shard illuminated their path, its light pulsating in sync with the gentle hum of the tower's core. For the first time in hours, the air felt calm, but the weight of what came next hung heavy over them. So, Alex said, breaking the silence. We've got the shard, the sentinels are toast, for now, and the tower's alive again. What happens next? You beam up to your ship and leave me to explain this to the local authorities. Zephyr glanced at him, her expression unreadable. Not yet, she said. The tower must ascend first. It cannot function fully while buried beneath the surface of your planet. Alex stopped, his brow furrowing. Ascend? Like a rocket? Not exactly, Zephyr replied, her voice calm. The tower will phase into orbit. Its structure is designed to transcend physical boundaries when powered by the shard. Alex blinked, the enormity of her words sinking in. So, this thing is just going to disappear into space. No big deal, right? No one on Earth will notice. Zephyr hesitated, then shook her head. The energy required for the phase will likely draw attention. Your people may perceive it as an anomaly, but the process will be quick. They will not have time to react. Well, that's reassuring, Alex muttered. So what do you need me for? Zephyr stopped and turned to face him. Your part in this is not over. The shard's activation has revealed a deeper truth, a connection between my people and yours. Alex raised an eyebrow. What kind of connection? Zephyr held out the shard, its crystalline surface shimmering like liquid light. When the failsafe scanned us, it accessed data from your genetic structure. It confirmed what some of my kind have long suspected: Earth and my home share a common origin. Alex stared at her, his mind racing. You're saying, humans and your people are related? Yes, Zephyra said softly. Long ago, before my people evolved into what we are now, a branch of our species left our homeworld. They sought to establish colonies across the galaxy, but many of those colonies were lost to time. Earth may have been one of them. Alex felt a strange mix of awe and disbelief. So, what does that mean? That we're long-lost cousins or something? It means our destinies are intertwined, Zephyra said. Your world may one day face the same challenges mine does. The shard's knowledge is not just for my people, it is for yours as well. The two reached the control chamber at the top of the tower. The room was vast and open, with a panoramic view of the night sky through translucent walls. Stars twinkled above, their light mingling with the glow of the shard. Zephyra approached a central console and placed the shard into a crystalline slot. The entire room came alive, streams of light spiraling outward as the tower began to hum with renewed energy. This is it, she said, her voice steady. The tower will ascend in moments. Once it reaches orbit, I can stabilize its systems and prepare for departure. Alex leaned against a railing, watching as the stars above seemed to shift and blur. The air grew warmer, charged with an almost electric energy. And then what? You just leave? Zephyra glanced at him, her expression softening. I will return to my people. But the shard's knowledge will remain encoded in the tower. It will be accessible to you, should your world ever need it. Alex frowned. Accessible how? I can't exactly read alien glyphs. The shard will adapt, Zephyra said. It recognizes your potential. The failsafe confirmed it. You will find a way. Alex let out a dry laugh. Great. No pressure or anything. The tower began to tremble, and the walls shimmered as the ascension process started. Zephyra worked quickly at the console, her glowing hands moving in a blur as she stabilized the energy output. Alex felt his stomach drop as the ground beneath him seemed to shift and dissolve, the tower lifting away from the planet's surface. Through the translucent walls, he could see the Earth falling away below them, the curvature of the planet glowing faintly in the moonlight. It was breathtaking, yet terrifying. I can't believe this is happening, Alex muttered, gripping the railing tightly. It is the beginning of a new chapter, Zephyra said, her voice calm. For both our worlds. As the tower stabilized in orbit, Zephyra stepped away from the console and approached Alex. She held out her hand, her crystalline eyes glowing softly. You have done more than I could have asked, Alex. Your bravery and ingenuity have ensured the survival of this mission. Alex hesitated, then shook her hand. Yeah, well, I guess I couldn't let you take on killer robots alone. That wouldn't be very neighborly. Zephyra smiled faintly. You are more than a neighbor. You are a bridge between our worlds. And I believe your people will rise to the challenges ahead. Alex nodded, a lump forming in his throat. So, this is goodbye. For now, Zephyra said. But the shard's connection to your world remains. And when the time comes, I will return. As the final systems in the tower activated, Zephyra guided Alex to a small pod near the edge of the chamber. The pod's interior glowed softly, its contours sleek and inviting. This will return you safely to your planet, she said. Alex stepped inside, his heart pounding. You're sure this thing won't crash? It is perfectly safe, Zephyra assured him. I have programmed it to land near your original location. Alex sighed, leaning back against the seat. All right. But you'd better keep your promise. I'm not a fan of loose ends. Zephyra nodded, her expression serious. You have my word. The pod's hatch closed with a soft hiss, and Alex felt a sudden rush of motion as the pod launched away from the tower. He watched through a small viewport as the tower grew smaller, its shimmering light blending with the stars. The descent was smooth, the pod systems guiding it through Earth's atmosphere with ease. Alex braced himself as the pod slowed, its thrusters firing to ensure a gentle landing. Moments later, the hatch opened, revealing the familiar forest where his journey had begun. He stepped out, the cool night air filling his lungs. The forest was quiet, the only sound the rustle of leaves in the breeze. For a moment, Alex wondered if it had all been a dream. But as he glanced at the sky, he saw a faint, distant light, Zephyr's tower, now a tiny speck among the stars. Alex returned to his cabin, his mind racing with everything he had experienced. He sat at his desk, staring at the blank screen of his laptop. Slowly, he began to type, documenting every detail of his journey. The world needed to know the truth, or at least, it would someday. For now, he would keep the story to himself, waiting for the right moment to share it. And as he wrote, Alex couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. The galaxy was vast and full of challenges, but it was also full of possibilities. And maybe, just maybe, humanity was ready to rise to meet them. The end. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. For more exciting HFY stories. Your support means the world to us. And make sure to tap the bell icon, so you never miss an update. Stay tuned for our next adventure, and until then, keep exploring the stars. See you in the next video.